Welcome back to the MVP Real Estate Podcast, Season 3, Episode 7. We have Victoria here from bright and sunny Denver, Colorado, which, I mean, you guys are sitting right at 25 with us. We were talking before the show, so we're still sitting in the cold. Welcome back to the show. Thanks for coming back.
Thanks, Marcus. It's good to be back. Good to see you again.
Yeah, it's always fun. We got a new face in the crowd, but same show. As we jump into this one, I know we talked a lot about your history and where you came from in the last show. Can you give us like a 30-second background? And then I think this show we kind of talk about where you're headed, because I know you were headed back into real estate when we took off from the last show.
Yeah, definitely.
So give us like a little 30-second background just for any new listeners that are out there that didn't catch your last show.
All right. Well, I've been in business for 21 years, actually, this year. And part of our adventure has been in investing in real estates. We specialized mostly in fix and flips. We hit the downturn along with the 2008 recession. And so we've been on a journey. I work as a business coach and consultant with family businesses, as well as we are building up our reserves to get back into real estate here in the future. It takes a little bit of time, especially with the markets the way they are right now.
Yes. And that is what I was going to, talk to you about, because obviously trying to get back into it now is kind of a funky time for some people. So we will touch on all that, I'm sure. With what you're doing currently, business coaching.
Yes.
You mentioned before the show, you like to work with construction.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. One of my clients is a construction company. They're in framing. And so construction is one of the industries that I specialize in, because when we were in real estate, we were doing fix and flips. So we like the design part of it, and we understand a large part of the industry, in working with GCs as well as the individual subcontractors. So I work with family businesses to be successful and create a legacy. And construction happens to be one of the industries that I work in. And I help them create success beyond the transfer of leadership, wealth, and ownership in a family business. And construction's fun. Real estate's fun.
Yeah, it's a wonderful, crazy market. Or industry, I'll call it. And I like where your direction is, because at least from where I see it, the people that usually start their construction companies don't come from the business background. They come from a construction background. So generally, it's not all cases, the person that starts the construction company just wants to do, like in your reference, the framing, and doesn't want to do the paperwork or build the business. They just want to do what they've been doing, which is build houses. So I feel like there's a very good tandem with what you bring and what they bring to be able to make a successful business.
Oh, definitely. Like the company that I'm working with now, that's a framing company. The CEO is actually not the one doing the work. So they've relatively started to set it up right, but she also has a full-time job. So she's handling all the paperwork and all the legal side of everything and the bookkeeping side. And her dad is actually the one doing the work, and they want to build it to a point where he's not doing the work. And then she can actually step in full-time into the framing company. So I'm helping them to get to that point so that she can just kind of guide it as true visionary CEO, and he can oversee the work, but they're not dependent on either one of them to actually grow the business. So that's what we're focusing on there.
Nice. Within that example, are you helping with the process of the daughter taking ownership? Like, is it the father selling, or what's the dynamic on that one?
In this case, it's father started it, needed daughter to help with the paperwork. Daughter actually owns the company.
Okay.
So yeah, we have culture that we have to deal with, just even with them, between the two of them and with her, because it's a Hispanic family. So we're dealing with the family dynamics, and I'm working with her to help her to really take ownership and leadership of the company, because it's been in business for, what was it, 5 years, and it's been growing, but Dad has wanted her to take full step in ownership. So it's a wonky one, but all family businesses are wonky. They each have their own distinct differences.
Yeah. Yep. And obviously it's not as simple when you get family involved, because the person that you're making business decisions, you're also sitting with at Thanksgiving and Christmas. So
exactly.
And you got to keep it respectful.
And you're expected to show up for things like, in the Hispanic culture, everybody's quinceañeras and, baptisms, and there's a whole lot, just, we have a lot of cultures in our country, and every family has a mix of cultures. And so when you're in that, that's one of the things that happens, is that you have those mixes of cultures. So I work with them within their culture, as well as creating that culture in the company so that it will grow. And right now we're working towards helping her to get out into the community of GCs so that they can really expand their business, because their framing is they're one of the top framers. However, if you only are dependent on 1 or 2 GCs for your work, it doesn't work very well.
Yeah, it gets tough. And I know that right now, I'm sure they are prepping for like their busy season.
That they are.
Because right now, all the new builders they're trying to get these framers that are awesome, they're first scheduled. And especially in the Midwest, it might be a little different with you. Like a lot of our new builds kind of kick off March, April, because the frost is done. You can actually dig. So you want all of your framers lined up, but you're at the whim of the weather, and they don't want to say, yeah, we're set, because if your job isn't ready, do they just pause and no one works?
So pretty much.
It's a very, very weird time where framers want to book things, but you kind of have to push pause until you can actually put it in pen.
Yeah.
And subject yourself to the commitment.
Well, in Colorado's a little different because they build year round here. Okay. I mean, we have more cranes in the city. I can't remember how many we counted. Last time I think we counted 10 or 12, something like that.
Really?
Yeah, cranes working. And part of construction is my oldest daughter. Her husband is also, he moves dirt. They do the digs for all the dirt, and they work most of the winter unless it's really snowing or we have a hard cold. So
really,
in the Denver area, in the metro area, they're digging and building all winter. It just there stops. So that's where it gets really hard, is because it's hard to plan for anybody as to when you're going to work, when you're not going to work, and the weather will determine it.
Yeah, that's the wonderful, well, I'm going to say Midwest, but you guys are West and you're still getting the snow. The wonders of the snow.
Yes, we do.
So where are you, like, what is the finish line for them? Do you have a projected, is it time? Like in a year, you want the full transition, or how long is the transition taking? Just for people's perspective, if you are running or plan to run a family business and you've got lineage coming up, how do you prep your timeline for the takeover of the new regime, I'll call it?
So what you want to do is really look out 3 to 5 years, because it takes 3 to 5 years to have a full 100% successful transition, because you're going to lose. Because if you don't do that, you're going to lose key employees that are good employees. And you're going to end up keeping employees that aren't so good, that are the ones that are just there for the paycheck, or just riding, they're just floating along because they've been there since the beginning type thing, right? Yeah. So I start with 18 months engagements with my clients, but it typically takes 3 to 5 years, depending on how the culture's been before. because the culture is so dependent on the current owner generation leading it, because they have their idea and their way to do it. And if they hang on too long through the transition, then it actually undermines the new generation coming up. And so it's really important to plan. There was an HVAC company in Denver that was doing excellent. This was one of my colleagues told me this story, and I didn't meet these people, but they had this extremely super successful HVAC company. They decide they don't want to work it anymore. They take it and hand it over to their son and their daughter. It lasted a year.
Really?
It lasted a year. Yeah. Because the thing is their mom and dad had been doing all the work. They had been doing all the running of everything. And that's one of the things that I help them with, is help mom and dad separate from the business, from the company, and start looking at who are the employees, who do we need employees, who can we bring in as a contractor, like a fractional CFO, or do we need to bring in a CEO and have your kids just be like the board and the chair, and you be the board as well, and have somebody else completely run the business, and so there are different things and different ways to navigate it. But they've also got to create a life outside of the company, because they've been running it and doing so many times. It's like 9-10 hour days, almost 7 days a week, and they're talking about it at the dinner table. And it takes time to mediate what is the culture going to look like, take the best from current, where they want it to go, and everybody kind of get on the same page and extricate the current owners from it and let the new ones take off.
Yeah. And that's super hard, especially for those people that have been running it for decades, to remove themselves from, it could be their identity for the past 20 years.
Or 40
and now they
years.
they have to now just stop cold turkey.
It doesn't work very well for anybody.
And you see that with any other bigger company. It's no different just because it's a family company. If you are working or owned a company that is big, and you remove yourself, they usually keep you on with a salaried position so that you stay within the company for, like you said, 3 to 5 years, so that you can help the turnover happen smooth. All the ins and outs, so you can help with the ins and outs as the new regime kind of takes their culture into it.
Yeah, because my focus with them is culture, strategy, and legacy. Let's have the company be what it was intended to be, not just, intermixed with the family, or even in any business. But did you know that 85 to 90% of all companies are family owned or operated? Yeah.
Really?
One form or another. Yeah, that was one of the researches that I did. But one of the things that I've learned is that all 99.9% of companies also are family influenced.
Okay, what goes into that breakdown? Family influence?
Yeah. So if you're not family owned or operated, how many times have you heard somebody say, oh yeah, I've got to take this over to my brother-in-law, or I have to take this to my sister-in-law, or my sister, my dad, or my mom to get their opinions. So you've got the family advising outside of the company, and then you have the spouses outside of, if it's not a family company, you've got the spouses out there going, well, you need to do this and you need to do that.
The unofficial board members.
The unofficial board members, yeah. And sometimes they're your teenagers.
Yeah.
And they're not necessarily board members, but they impact you and your company.
Yeah. No, that is true. I didn't really think of the influence part of it, because that goes, me and Dan were just talking about yesterday about his wife and what she was saying, and her future thoughts and Dan's future thoughts. And like it is true, and I never really thought about it. So, and you said that was 99%?
Oh yeah. I mean, you have to be, to really not be influenced by family, you pretty much have to have no family.
True.
Right?
Yeah.
Because, or you have to be if you have family, you have to be closed mouth around your
Yeah.
family about what's going on at work. And that's isolating, and that's a mental health issue becomes when you have, because it sucks you out of community, and that doesn't create a good culture in a company either.
Yeah. You have to like portray yourself as a spy. Like you can't tell your family what you do for work.
Right, exactly. Exactly.
That would not go well over the holiday dinners at all.
No, it would not.
At all.
It would not at all.
So when you're doing these transitions with family-owned companies, do you ever dabble in like ESOPs where you would break out shares to employees or family members as they take over? I know that you wouldn't facilitate it necessarily, but is that a package that you bring in or offer to some of these owners?
It's not a package I offer. It's what I do with, I collaborate with attorneys, and I'll make recommendations from a business and a culture side.
Right.
But, there are so many other advisors that are just awesome. So like I will partner up with the fractional CFOs and the fractional COOs. And one of my clients, her fractional COO, and they're actually some of the ones that will bring me in as,
Okay.
He went over just before the end of the year. He brought to me what they were looking at for compensation and different things and equity stuff with employees, to get just my feedback on that as to, the market and different pieces of what I've seen. And so I will have input to things like the ESOPs and stuff like that. And it will also depend on the person's, whether they want to sell it to an employee owned. Sometimes they do that in the shares. So it's like, we'll talk about what that does to the culture and how to keep the culture going forward, and let the attorneys and the benefits people and all of the people that have to be involved in that. That's a huge thing.
Yeah. It's a huge undertaking. And I figured that you'd bring in attorneys to draft paperwork and do their due diligence, because that would be a lot for one person to take on.
Yeah. So from my part of it, it's really helping them to create the vision of where they want the company to go, and then we work the culture from there. So what's the company going to look like in the future without you there? And oftentimes it's the new generation and the previous generation stepping in together to determine this. So with that, it's like, okay, so how much involvement do you want in the company?
Yeah.
And then
it's kind of weird. Like it makes me think of back in college when I was going through the business degree. one of our projects was to go through like a SWOT analysis for 4 different companies. You could pick whatever 4 you want. And that's strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. And I remember when I started this company, you go through your mission statement, you go through your goals, you go through your own SWOT analysis of where your opportunities are, what's going to hurt you in your market, those type of things. But it's when you change regimes and you have new ownership, you need to get back to those roots of like, okay, now where are we headed? What can we do? Our opportunities have changed. Our threats have changed. It's been 30 years since we've looked at this. So like that's a really, really good reset button of like, okay, we just need to reevaluate what's going on. And then everybody has a clear picture of it's just like when we started 30 years ago.
Exactly. And this time it's actually even more intentional, because it's like you have a company and it's like you have the experience of the people in your
and the data.
You do. You have a lot more information, and you have people, and insecurities happen during transfer of leadership in a company, whether it's ownership included or just the leadership piece of it. You have a huge difference because you've got people, and people get insecure, they get scared, they get territorial, they get power hungry. You got all these things coming in. And so what is the culture that you want to create? There were good things and there were bad things in the current way things were done. What do we want to create for the future so that it can really grow sustainably?
Yeah. In what, because like we were saying, we have the data, we have the experience, we have the people now. Have you ever been in, and I would find this would be a fascinating, you don't have to share details, but you're not going to go in and say like, okay, we're a gutter company. We've done gutters for 30 years. We look at the data and there's actually more money in siding. So usually you're not going to change your whole company, but I wonder how many times they would say, all right, we're a gutter company. We work with new builds. But then when you look through their data, they actually profit more by working with homeowners with replacements. Like, has there ever been, I would call that kind of a significant market change for a company that you've worked with in terms of what they've been doing? And then you look at their data and you're like, hey, your best opportunity is to go after maybe these clients and not the ones you've been trying for 20 years. Has there been any like shakeups like that where?
There hasn't been any major shakeups like that, because that's when those are things that the CFO will usually bring up. The COO will bring up because they're the ones deep in the financials. I'm not. So like one of the things though is one of my clients is a plumbing company. They're like the oldest plumbing company in Denver. And in framing their market and everything and working with them, where they've come is as they've built their culture and stuff, they identified their expertise and they're adding apprenticeship, as they've gotten a grant and they've added an apprenticeship as part of their business so that they teach plumbing. And so they're taking it and for themselves, because it was because right now it's been hard to find the right labor, right? Yes. So they decided that they were going to grow their labor pool and got a grant to help with that. And so in our conversations, what the next thing to do is take that apprenticeship training program, and they can actually, as it matures, open it up to their competitors, just open it up like a regular apprenticeship program that then they can, outsource people and make money on the apprenticeship program over and beyond the grant and providing their own labor.
Yeah, one of my HVAC guys just brought in an apprentice, just started. He's going to the local tech college. Mm-hmm. And then when he's not in class, he works HVAC with him. Yeah. And they were saying that they're paying for his school, and then he's signed on to work for him for 5-7 years or something like that. Yeah. And then he would basically graduate and he could go off and do his own practice, or he sticks with them, whatever they decide after those years. But that's a super nice way, one, to get somebody experienced, and not only with the experience, but they're experienced in your process. So they know your ins and outs and where you, how you run your ducks or how you do your returns, like where things are going. They're in your system, which will breed hopefully a better employee long-term.
Exactly. And the thing is they get trained into your culture, right? Mm-hmm. So you want to have a healthy culture.
Yep. Because... And I've been thinking about now with high schools are getting so much more advanced in their shop classes. Oh, yeah. Like I go to the local high school here and they're building from blueprints, like mini houses in their shop.
That's cool.
I didn't get to touch anything like that until I was out of college. So for them to be in high school, like I would love to go over to the high school and ask if any of those kids in the shop class need a summer labor job, because then they already know the language we use. They know how, even if they just cut and they move lumber for us, it would be a huge help.
Oh yeah, that it definitely would. I know we have here a school called Emily Griffith Opportunity School, and they have a high school and they have a technical school. And nice. And so my grandson's actually doing their GED program right now, but he's looking at, they have an apprenticeship in the technical college where the college pays their wage for the apprenticeship. So they have partnerships with different companies around Denver, which is really cool.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
How long has that been around? That's
Emily
cool.
Griffith has been here since 1930s. It's the primary trade school, because you can go to high school and come out with a trade as well. So that's really cool. It's nice to see that the trades are coming back and that the schools are starting to bring trades back into the high schools, because for a long time they went to this place. Everybody has to go to college, but everybody's not designed to go sit in a classroom and go to college. And the skills that you get just by being on site, you know, and working with people in the trades, you can't learn those refinement skills anywhere else.
Right. It's the same as, I'm a registered real estate agent as well. You go through the courses, you learn your textbook material. Nothing, well, I mean, I won't say nothing. It's not the same as practicing in real life.
No,
how they want you to learn the textbook and how you learn in the field, way different things. So it's the same thing in carpentry or any trade. What you learn in the classroom, yes, by the book, but it's not going to be in practice. So you do need that in-field training. And if you can get in one of these apprenticeships and get paid to learn, I mean, how much student debt problem are we in right now? That's like the opposite of what is going on. So I would say sign up because it's needed.
Exactly.
And during the COVID stint, trying to find a contractor was like near impossible. I mean, people would call me for work and you'd have to give them a 6 or 7 month date out in the future because you're backed up and everybody they call is backed up. And all you need is just more tradesmen. Because there's enough work out there. There always will be.
Oh, there is, definitely. And, you know, I think that shortage of tradesmen is a result of that focus on college that our culture, our American culture did for a long time, because the trades quit being honored as a respectable way to earn a living.
Yeah. And it's something I think we gloss over. I don't know what show we had talked on it before, but I think there was a finance guy in and we were talking about how the culture, just when you graduate high school, your parents said, okay, the next step is college. And yes, they didn't force us to go to college, but man, you were a leopard if you didn't go to college. It was like something was wrong when you didn't go. And now we're sitting with all these thousands of people with massive student debt that they're going to pay until they're 70. And we wonder why no one has money to spend anything in the market, because we're all paying back student loans.
Right.
So I am excited for like the next generation to come through where college isn't the answer. It's still an answer. Like I still think people need to go, but not 90% of people. Because not everybody needs an office job or a cubicle job. Some people want to be out in the field. And I think promoting that and allowing that to be a natural thing, I think will be healthy for people's psyche.
Oh, absolutely. Well, and part of, you know, I have my business, and part of it though is in my work with companies is really about having them have all their employees and everybody thriving, right? So you have the right people doing the right things for the right reasons, and you tap into their unique genius. And people thrive when they are valued for who they are and what they bring to the table. And by having it go for this new generation, and that's what they want, is they want to be honored for that and to gain the skills in what they want to learn. And then they will show up. And that's what this one client of mine that's done the apprenticeship program is. She's got, you know, young 20, 21-year-olds who are absolutely enthusiastic and show up for work because they're learning what they want to learn, and they're going to be able to make a good living doing what they love to do.
Yeah. And that's cool. When you can get people in the company that are enjoying what they're doing, and it's not like you have to remind them like, hey, there's work today. They just genuinely want to come in. That's when you got your healthy culture.
Definitely. And it's not easy. It's like parenting isn't easy, you know. doing the easy thing isn't necessarily the right thing.
Yeah. I just talked to my son about that. We were reading last night and I pulled 2 books out of his backpack and he's like, all right, let me see them. And he opened both of them and he's like, I'm going to pick that one. And I was like, why'd you pick that book? Oh, it's shorter. Come on, man. We can't just pick because it's the easiest thing. Like this one is about a topic that you like. Why wouldn't you want to read that one? But that's the 8-year-old learning to read struggles right there.
Right. Yeah. Because it's like I can get through it faster and it's not as painful. But the thing is sometimes putting that extra effort in, it really isn't painful because you, like you said, learn the information. It's a topic you're interested in.
Yep, I know. Oh, the wonders of learning to read.
Oh, yes.
But all right, so now you have worked with your company, multiple other companies, and now you are like on the cusp of starting your business back up. So where are you headed? What's your first step as your 2.0 company comes to fruition?
For our real estate?
You're going to have so much experience in your head, not from running yours, but from working with others too. So what are some of those key takeaways that you've worked with and that you've experienced that you're like, okay, when I start my 2.0, here's where I'm started. This is the direction I want to go. Or is it still incomplete and we're still thinking about it?
Well, we're not still thinking about it. We're in process, but the first thing is when you're looking at getting back into real estate, well, for us first, it's to get our own personal residence, but we always look at our residence from an investor point of view, with that consciousness. But it's really
thank you for doing that. As an agent, I appreciate that because I love talking to people that think about it that way.
Yeah, because it's like, there are things that when we're looking, we've actually started looking at different properties in different places of where we want for our personal residence. And we're also very aware of what it is that we want for us personally. And we know that there are going to be things that we put into our personal residence that will not add value to the house whatsoever, right? Mm-hmm. There are things that you do that don't add value. And when you flip that into investment, you have to pull that back because as an investor, it's really tempting to make your properties look like you would want to live in them and to put that amount of dollars in, and you really can't and be successful, right? You have to pay attention to your profit. So part of what we're doing is we're looking for our own house and knowing that step one is to get back our own house to own again. And we're paying attention to the market. You have to pay attention to the market. We look at the rental market and we look at the housing market and we're going, seriously, people are willing to pay that much for rent? And we're watching all the building and they're trying to catch up from the stop build that happened back in 2008. But there's going to be a place where the market's going to tip over the other side and come down. And so we're kind of watching that because it looks like the projections is that the market's going to start coming down a little bit in 2020, next year in 2024, because we're hitting that cycle of a little bit of a dip. So that's the thing that we pay attention to. So in a way, we're not out of it. Granted, we're not doing it for income or making money, but we very much watch what is happening in our area and where we'd invest. And we've talked about, well, that one's for sale. Should we see about going after that? Because it's a duplex for an investment. It's like, no, it's too high at this point in time.
Yeah.
Because you want to manage your cash flow on a property, right?
Yeah. Right.
And if it's too high and you have to charge too much rent for a property or your margin of flip is too small, we've watched people flip around here and we're going, you didn't make anything on that.
Yeah. Yeah. And an experienced person can go in and kind of look at an area, a house, and assume what's going to happen. Maybe not to the penny or to the dollar.
Well, exactly.
But you can get relatively close after you've done this a few times. And I mean, right now, to what you're speaking on, like me and Dan, when we sit on calls, we're always going over numbers. Dan's analyzing properties to look to make sure that our numbers work. If they don't work, you go in and you try to say like, okay, it doesn't work at this purchase price. What would we have to offer it? And obviously you can tell with where your market's at if that's even feasible. So it sounds like you are already starting your company because you're already mentally watching it. And now you're just waiting for the time to happen.
Yeah, it's just timing. It's just really, this is one place where market timing works. You know, it doesn't work in the stock world, but market timing works when you're in real estate, because you know, we did so much where our timing was off with the real estate before, when we were doing it before. So we've learned, you know, you have to pay attention to your subcontractors, the GC that you bring on. You have to pay attention to how long it's been, the market's going up, how long has it been since it did a dip. And so you just kind of have to watch. It takes longer for real estate to move up and down versus the stock market. It can go up and down, and you don't want to play in that mess per se, trying to guess it. But real estate has a trajectory, and you've got to bring all of that together. And when we were newbies in it, we didn't know what we know now.
Yeah. So when you're thinking in 2024, you're going to actually mentally make the flip to purchasing. Right now is just more mental prep and getting everything set and ready.
Exactly. Yeah. 2024 is it. And we're watching the market, the housing rentals. They're getting their dollars for it. They're still getting the $2,500 a month in rent right now for properties. You're going, okay, really? But they're staying on the market for a long time. There was one rental up the street that was up for rent, you know, $2,500 a month for that one. It just rented, and it was on the market for 3 months.
Oh, really?
To rent, yeah.
Yeah.
It's been up for rent since January.
I was just reading a blog.
What is that?
I was just reading a blog about someone inquiring about short-term rentals and how effective the Denver market, or how accepting the Denver market would be with those. And they were asking, like, is it a good spot to invest and trying to work towards short-term rentals and things like that? And a lot of people are like trying to push this person away, and they're like, well, if you're trying to get us to convince you, then obviously you're not suited to handle the short-term rental market. But there's ways to still, I mean, if their opportunity is there, to take advantage of the short-term rentals in that area specifically, because I know it's building up. And I don't know, it was an interesting read. I probably took an hour reading this whole blog and everybody's replies about it. So it's kind of funny that, you know, you're in that area right now too. So
yeah, well, short-term rentals, they come, you know, when you have a company, especially like, because you guys do, you know, work with contractors and stuff too. So one of the issues with here in Denver, and we went to Pagosa Springs in October, there's a balance that has to be handled between short-term and long-term rentals, because a lot of people are getting priced out of the housing because people are converting to short-term rentals to make their money, right? And then you have the labor that they're not going to pay short-term rental prices. And so so there's this balance on the long-term, short-term rental thing. And now in Denver, you have for a while had to be licensed for short-term rental. Now you have to be licensed for a long-term rental as well.
Oh, I didn't hear that. So now you need specific licenses for what investment you're going to go.
Yeah, if you're going to have a long-term rental here, it's like 50. It's not much. It's $50 a year, but you have to register. So it's not really, I guess license is the wrong word, but you have to register every property as a landlord here. And you've had to do that for short-term rentals for a while, but long-term, they just added it to long-term. It's not high, But if you have an apartment building, it's a good chunk.
But and you said, is it 50 per property, or do they go
50 per unit? Yeah.
Oh, so if you have a 100-unit apartment complex, it's 50 per door.
Mm-hmm. It's 50 per door.
That's cutting
in. How long has that been happening?
It just got voted in last fall.
Okay, I gotcha. Yeah, because I hadn't heard anything about that, and hopefully that doesn't move to Wisconsin. But if it does, obviously we play that game.
Well, part of it in Denver, I think the reason they sent it through and it was voted on to do is Denver is really a lot of rentals.
Yep.
It really has a huge number of rentals and apartment buildings, and there's been issues with the equity and stuff. They're kind of having issues with the market, I guess you could say.
I gotcha.
My computer decided, the battery decided to start going, so excuse me.
Oh, no worries. Yeah, when I bought my house, I originally had planned to put an ADU in the back and make that its own apartment and then be able to rent that out. And the municipality is against that here. They don't do any short-term rentals. They don't do any ADUs.
Oh, wow.
It's just an absolute no across the board.
Yeah, they've opened it up here.
The city planner, he loves them. He was like, I don't mind, but obviously it's not my rule. So I've written to the city every year, like reassessing, are we bringing this up within your meetings, trying to get something moving. But our community of 16,000 people isn't really on board. But I see the market because there's a lot of people that come up from Chicago because we're surrounded by lakes. So they come up in the summer, hang out with their family from Wisconsin, go out on the lakes, and then go home. So I'm thinking put in a unit, and in the summer it's going to be booked. Winter, not really, but summer would be great. And hopefully you make up enough money in the summer that if it's dead in the winter, it's just dead in the winter.
Right.
But I got some work on the city front to try to allow that before I can do it.
Yeah, well, because there's literally a housing shortage in Denver. So of affordable housing especially. So Denver has changed their zoning for ADUs. There's a lot of neighborhoods that now have ADU zoning. So
oh, really?
Oh, yeah, ours is one of them.
Do you see that it's a positive or a negative within your market, or kind of a push?
It's for me, it's neither here nor there. But when we get our property, we want an ADU. So as well. So whether it's for family members to temporarily occupy when stuff is happening, or whether it's to do as short-term rentals or even a long-term rental, it helps pay the bills.
Yep. And I'm seeing it more and more on HGTV when they're doing these flipping shows. They're attaching, like they're blocking part of the house and creating a separate unit within the building because then they can sell it. And the prices, like in California and in the West, are a bit higher. So a lot of people will be willing to buy that higher price because they can rent out that back of the house with the smaller unit to take off their mortgage. So it is kind of helping with some people being able to buy like they weren't before. So there are some financial positives to people buying them. It's just getting the governance to allow it to happen.
Oh, definitely. Definitely. And some places in the country take longer to get there than others, right? Because you always, and that's the thing is when you're in real estate, you're more aware of what the zoning is than the people that aren't and how it helps or hurts the economy.
Yeah. So it doesn't sound like short-term rentals is the market you're going to hit when you get back into it. Obviously, you'll have an ADU. Not. Do you know where you guys are headed? Is it multifamily? Is it single-family rentals?
It would be mostly, we haven't really decided there, but probably single-family, and we probably do some more in the flip market because for us, we like the design aspect of the flip market. You know, we like being creative. So it'll be a mix of rental and flip, but probably single family or maybe up to a fourplex multifamily, but not beyond that. I don't want to, and actually we'd hire a property manager to help.
Yep. Yeah. And me and Dan were just talking about like basically where you're at when you're looking to buy a property, how you build in your property management costs on the front end. Because just like you, maybe you manage them to start, but eventually you're going to pay somebody to do it.
Yeah.
So buffer in your price from the start.
Oh, definitely, definitely, because you've got to think about, you're not just doing the property just to have it, right? There is a certain amount of profit. And one of the things that we've talked about is that, with like the fourplexes or a house or whatever, is we want to get profit. But one of the things we've noticed is the landlords are going totally just for what they can get in the market versus what is their versus a profit margin. So you have that's part of why there's a challenge with affordable housing. Yeah. So is because people are charging what the market rate is, whether it's what they actually want for profit or not. They're going, okay, let's go take all the big profit now while we can, which isn't, that's the way they operate, which is fine. But you want to manage your cash flow. You want to make sure you have profit. You want to make sure you have the money to be able to take care of the properties. And there's a social consciousness that needs to go with it too.
Yep.
And
that's the funny in like kind of weird part of real estate where it is a business, but you're dealing with people and you cannot take the people aspect out of it. You're dealing with their homes, you're dealing with where their space and their stuff is, and you have to be respectful. As much as you're all about numbers, you can't subject their freedoms of their space just for your numbers.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I've seen people that have, been in a house for years and their rents has increased and stuff like that, but the house is like the property's paid off. There's no mortgage on the property. It's a cash cow, regardless of how much you get. And then they end up having to move. They've been a renter there for 10, 15 years or whatever. And then they have to move because the owner decides that the rent's got to go meet the rest of the market. Or they're going to sell it and then the new buyer doesn't want to rent it. So there's so many things that happen and none of them are really wrong. It's just a matter of where your values are. And our values are at the place that as we start having rentals, we're going to approach it from the perspective of, yes, we'll get our profit and we're not going to follow the market for rent. Let's put it that way.
Yeah. I mean, if that house is paid off and you have a tenant who's never missed a month in 15 years, like I see a very big benefit of having no mortgage and having another 15 years of no missed rent.
Right. Exactly.
Or you do an apartment turnover and you miss a month there, and then that person stays for a year and then they move. And then you have damage to your property that you have to go in and fix. Now you're adding cost to it rather than just sticking with your perfect tenant. And that's the one thing that when you're a property manager, when you find a tenant who pays on the first every month and doesn't miss a payment and communicates, like they are your golden tenant. Treat them well because you don't get them all the time.
Definitely. Exactly.
So when you find it, sorry, my dog just walked in and clanking his bone around. When you find that person or that tenant, like keep them and treat them well. Those are the same people that when my tenants, like the good ones, if they're going to go buy a house, I want to help them because I know they have their ducks in a row. They've proved to me for how many years by paying their rent every month that they're going to get their stuff done through the home buying process.
Right.
It's not going to be like a lead that just keeps looking at houses and doesn't move and doesn't want to do anything. They're good people. I know they're looking, like I want to help them. So it kind of goes a two-way street of being respectful, I guess, with your tenant being a landlord.
Well, and with you having your real estate license and having rentals, that makes a lot of sense, because you can you can facilitate and earn income and profit from both sides of the process, which is awesome.
Yep, it is fun. There's more, I feel like there's more pressure because you get like a normal person without a real estate license, just like a general contractor. If you mess up and the city or whoever the governance is, I'll say, catches you, like you might get hit with a slap on the wrist or a fine. But if you're licensed and you mess up, like it is like 3 times the fine and you've got some issues on your hand. So there's a good and then there's a bad.
Exactly.
You just got to make sure you're safe.
Definitely.
Well, we're coming up on an hour. I like to keep it there, otherwise it drags on.
Yeah, we don't want to do
we
that.
have things to do on our Friday. But we are going to have to check back with you in 2024 when you are like in the trenches of looking at your first property, because I think it would be fun to go over with you some properties that you analyzed or some numbers that you went over and what went into purchasing your first house. Because I know that I've been talked to about listeners and some of them have not started real estate. And I think that would be an awesome show if you could come in, and we don't need like exact numbers, but what went on in you and your husband's head as you were analyzing between these 10 properties of which one we're going to buy and why you decided to go with that one. I think that would be like a fascinating and beneficial show if you're up for it.
Oh, absolutely. And to give you a little bit of a teaser for it, is one of the directions we're looking at doing is a scrape.
Is a scrape?
Is a scrape and new build. Yeah. It's one of the directions we're looking at because we've got some decrepit houses that need to be scraped.
Okay.
In the neighborhood.
So you're going to get in the dirty houses.
Yeah, a little bit. That's the direction we're looking. But there's also a toss up. If we could find one that has what we want, we might go for that. That's already existing. So that's just a little teaser. So and then we'll have more information.
Yeah. And we'll have more data on the market at that point too. Cause I think that's going to be a huge rider in your decision.
Oh, it definitely is.
Hopefully interest rates go back down.
I know.
Yeah.
By then.
I know. What are we at, like 8.5 now?
Pushing. Yeah, I think so. Somewhere around there.
Hopefully we're back to the 3.
Well, we're still not, the interest rates still are not where they were when we were last in real estate. So.
Yikes.
Yeah, where were they when you left last?
They were hitting around the 9.5, 10.
Hopefully we don't get up there.
That would be nice.
Yeah, that would be nice. I don't know if we'll ever see 3 again. That was crazy.
That was another thing I just read. Someone was like, hey, I want to put 25% down. I need 3% interest rate, blah, blah, blah. And everybody's like, do you have a DeLorean? Can you get it up to 88 miles an hour? Like, there's like, that's not going to happen unless you're going to do a subject to, or you're going to pay $60,000 to buy it down. Like it's crazy.
Like buying points down?
Yeah. But, and then at that point, if you're buying it down up front, maybe by the time the rates drop back down, you would have lost out on that if you're trying to buy it down that much. So
at that point, you're almost better off just going cash.
Right.
Yep. Yeah. And I remember like after the height of COVID, when people were going through like 200 showings in a house in a day, interest rates were at 3%. After that period, when they rose up to like 4, 5, people were like, I'm just going to wait. Interest rates are too high. And I was like, interest rates are normal. What do you mean they're higher than 3? But 3 is ridiculous. And now we're seeing at 8.5. And I'm like, remember when you press pause before?
Yeah.
Right.
So you just got to keep the relative, like you were talking about. It's all cyclical. So yes, we might be up in a short little frame, but if you look at the entirety, we're like right in the middle. So, and Dan was just rubbing it in my face, his interest rate yesterday. So
that's 3%.
Yep.
Good for you.
Yeah.
You got that.
So hopefully we get back there, and hopefully you're onto some big things because interest rates are low and you are looking to buy.
Absolutely. So absolutely. That's the plan.
We will catch you probably late here in 2023, because then it's going to be, that's like your ramp up period for 24, if that works for you for timing.
Absolutely. So reach back out. I'll be happy to chat with you again.
Awesome. Sounds good. Have a good Friday. Enjoy your cold weather. Hopefully you do get up to 40.
Hopefully so. All righty.
All right. Have a good weekend. Thank you.
You too. Bye.